What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the BS Show. We are officially 2 days post UFC 231. Max Holloway beat Brian Ortega, and Valentina Shevchenko beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk. What a great fight card that was, first off. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I highly recommend you going and watching it. From top to bottom, the fights were great. It was very exciting. There were some big-time knockouts. There were some big-time fights. And it was just great. But the one fight I wanted to touch on was the Max Holloway against Brian Ortega fight. Max Holloway won via doctor stoppage in the 4th round. And what we learned from that fight was, number one, Max Holloway is really, really, really good. And the second thing we learned was Brian Ortega has just got the heart of a lion. He was getting pieced up through round 1 through 4. You could just tell there was such a clear difference in the stand-up and the striking abilities of Max Holloway opposed to Brian Ortega. But with that being said, Brian Ortega never quit, he never went down, and he never got knocked out. It took a referee to come in and to see his left eye that was swollen completely shut, his nose was broken and bleeding everywhere, and they waved off the fight. So even though Brian Ortega might not have won the fight, he won the hearts of the UFC and fight fans around the world. So my glaring question that I have next is what's next for Max Holloway? You have a guy who just beat a surging Brian Ortega. He just beat Jose Aldo back-to-back, who was the consensus #1 fighter in featherweight history and what a lot of people considered the GOAT for a long time. He also beat Anthony Pettis, who was a former lightweight champion, not to mention a whole other slew of victories that he's had before that. And he's essentially completely cleaned out the featherweight division. His last loss was to Conor McGregor, and I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, and Max Holloway, I think, was 20 or 21 years old. So he was just a little kid in the UFC world, and he hasn't lost since. He's on a 13-fight win streak, and he's looking better and better and better. So, you know, Max Holloway has said he would like to move up at some point in his career, maybe move up to 155, which we all know there's a ton of animals up there, you know, the likes of Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, just that division is stacked, possibly one of the best divisions in the UFC right now. So, you know, where does Max Holloway go? Does he take his chances going to 155, or does he stay at featherweight and just to continue to beat, you know, fighters over and over and over again and possibly break Anderson Silva's record of wins in a row, and title defenses? So we don't know. But the one guy that I want to see him fight, who I think it would be a very, very, very good fight, is a guy like Tony Ferguson. A guy that's not afraid to stand and bang, a guy that's not afraid to fight anybody, and, you know, a guy that'll lay his heart and mind and body on the line just like Max Holloway will. Tony Ferguson's long, he's lanky, he's got good striking, just like Max Holloway. And that would be a good fight to welcome Max Holloway to the 155-pound division. Mind you, this is all assuming that Tony Ferguson does not get a title shot at Khabib. If Tony gets a title shot at Khabib, which I think is warranted, I definitely believe that Tony Ferguson deserves a shot at Khabib for the lightweight strap. I would like to see Max Holloway fight the likes of a Nate Diaz. Nate is also a stand-up fighter. He's got good boxing, and he's not going to take it to the ground unless Max Holloway initiates it. So, you know, Max Holloway has a whole slew of guys he could fight that will be absolute wars at the 155-pound division. Or he can try to get that fight back with Conor McGregor at 155. They can run that back. Maybe he can get that loss back and take out Conor McGregor. So, you know, Max Holloway has nothing but options. At this point in his UFC career, he's very young, but he's also very accomplished. But now I think Dana White sees him as a legit superstar. You know, he can maybe start calling some of his own shots. He can start calling fighters out. He's not afraid of anybody, you know, and he's ready to rock and roll. So I really hope that Max Holloway does some really big things moving forward. I think he will. It just depends on if that's going to be at the 145-pound division or the 155-pound division. So let me know in the comments below where you think Max Holloway should fight. Who should he fight? Should he stay at 145 or should he move up to 155? because that 145 weight cut is starting to take a toll on him. If you see him during the weigh-ins, he looks drained. His body just looks, completely exhausted. So he might even be better at 155 with a little bit more energy. So let me know, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And if you haven't watched UFC 231, go back and watch it because you will not be disappointed. Thank you.